A Sunken Heart in Hino Bay by Jeff Carpenter. All life emerged, crawled out from the sea. Now, I don't know what's crawling out. Hino Bay High School Science Biology class, Monday, 2:43 p.m. Ayumi scribbles into her notebook, hunched over her desk, protecting her work. Her eyes are obscured by black horn rims matching her long jet black hair tied into a ponytail. Are you in grade 3? A girl beside her with dyed brown hair grabs the notebook off Ayumi's desk. The pen leaves a streak across the page. She turns to the second girl and shows her the notebook. The second girl makes a sour face, gesturing dismissively at the drawings in a lined notebook page. Cartoons. A girl sunbathing in a boat reading a book, and below her a myriad of sea creatures frolicking in the deep, an octopus and crab feasting on something. The girl points at a figure farther down the page, a masked scuba diver rising to the surface holding something in his hand. Oh my god, is that Mr. Harada? What is that in his hand? What has he got? A pearl? A present? For you? She and her friend laugh at the suggestion. Ayumi tries to grab it. Give it back. He'd only kiss you if you had gills and a tail. She already smells like she does. Give it back. There's a crack at the front of the class. The students' heads turn to the front. The teacher rests his hand on a book atop some scattered papers on his desk. Ayumi, please see me after class. Ooh. The two girlfriends coo in chorus. Ayumi holds a stack of textbooks in crossed arms close to her chest. I'm not sure what's come over you. You were disturbing the class today, and you haven't handed in your assignment yet. Usually you're a very well-behaved, punctual student. What's gotten into you? She can't meet his eyes. Tomorrow, Mr. Harada. Tomorrow. Ayumi's household, Monday, 6:49 p.m. The melted chocolate cools in the bowl on the double boiler. On the counter beside the stove are a box of sea salt, a jar of raspberry jam, a bowl of herring roe, a collection of spoons, and heart-shaped molds. Ayumi's grandfather walks up behind her, looking over her shoulder, surprises her. For a boy? It's good you take an interest in normal school life outside of the tales you read in your books. It's good you spend time with people your own age. Dead authors and old men like me are not ideal companions for young girls. Ayumi ignores her grandfather and increases her focus on spooning the jam into the cooled chocolate molds. With intense deliberation, she plucks 2 individual eggs from the herring roe and placing them side by side in the raspberry jam. Squishing them together in the gooey jam, they leak their briny golden insides into the surrounding compote. She sprinkles a pinch of sea salt into the molds, finishing her creation with a flourish. Could I have a taste of that chocolate, though? Reminds me of your grandmother. Tuesday, Valentine's Day, 1:56 p.m. A girl bumps into Ayumi in the hall. She drops her books and makes a desperate grab as the red cardboard box folded into the shape of a clamshell slips from her fingers. As she bends over to pick them up, she notices a boy, a strong, athletic boy from her gym class, looking at her with a kind of faint smile she hasn't seen before, and she sees that her skirt is riding up high on her legs. She straightens up and pulls her skirt down. The boy still has the funny look on his face, and he looks weak somehow, as if all his strength has leaked away. Just by looking at her, she feels flushed and rushes to class. What's this? Mr. Harada flips the cardboard clamshell open on his desk, revealing the chocolates within. Ayumi looks at the Valentine's Day present on display, one of the heart chocolates cracked from the fall. It's for you. Ayumi, I can't accept this. You know it is inappropriate for a student to offer such gifts to her teacher. I'm sorry, it looks like you put a lot of work into this gift, but I just can't. Ayumi hugs her books tight and shuffles to her seat. Otani, the grizzled old janitor, totters into the classroom and empties the waste paper basket by the teacher's desk. He winks at the gang of girls huddled together, gossiping and giggling. One of the girls with dyed brown hair leans over to Ayumi and hisses at her. If you want an older man, I'm pretty sure Mr. Otani is available. but better act quick before one of us snatches him up first. The huddle of girls convulses with laughter as Otani staggers out the door. Ayumi looks up from her book and over at Mr. Harada's desk. From her vantage point, she can see that one of the chocolates is missing. There is a space there. It is undeniable. Did she just see Mr. Harada lick his lips? Did he really? Ayumi watches intently, her elbows on her desk, chin resting on her knuckles, in rapt attention. My last dive, I saw definite changes. The outflow from these chemical plants is causing untold damage to the ecosystem. I'm finding noticeable mutations in the local sea life. Overlong exposure to this pollution is ravaging local populations. I've decided to devote my time recording and cataloging these mutations. We have to do something to change this. We all have to do something. What I'm doing is cataloging the mutations. He plops a Ziploc bag holding a fist-sized thing enveloped in gelatinous syrup on the desk. It is a creature curled into a fetal ball. 2 appendages pierce the syrupy envelope, terminating its claws. Know what this is? No guesses. It's a fish. Does it look like a fish to you? The students shake their heads. I don't think so. I found this swimming off the breakwater in Hino Bay. Well, it was trying to swim, more like paddling in a circle. Those bastards, those blameless industrialists in the plant on the shore, they've turned Hino Bay into a living science experiment. All life emerged. It crawled out of the sea. Now I don't know what's crawling out. He turns back to the specimen. This is the caudal fin, the tail of the so-called fish. An iridescent turquoise caudal fin unfurls in the swirling sea-green water. It swishes to and fro, back and forth, lazily propelling the creature upward. Breaking the surface, she notices that the creature is her. She is the creature, her bare human body above the water, her scaly torso and tapered tail beneath the waves, trailing off into the darkness and the murky depths below. Her long black hair flows out behind her, slowly undulating in the motion of the ripples. She feels the water rise in a soft swell, and he is there, beside her in the black rubber wetsuit. A gentle wave pushes them closer together. He pulls off his face mask and removes the regulator from his mouth. He presses it against her lips. Breathe, breathe, he urges. She opens her mouth, letting him inside her, and breathes in, breathes deep, and she feels herself going down into unconsciousness. Ayumi opens her eyes. She smiles and squeezes the pillow tight to her body. Wednesday, 3:02 p.m. The daughter of the Dragon King was Ningyo, Princess of the Deep. She could assume various forms and would often take the form of a beautiful woman who could put any man who ventured into the sea under her spell. Ayumi stands at the front of the class. Her magic pearls could turn... Ayumi, the assignment was supposed to be about sea life. Real, actual sea life. Dragons don't exist. Why would you... What made you do your assignment on that? I'm going to be forced to give you an F. Please see me after class. Ayumi tries to hold back a faint smile. He slumps back in his chair, pulls off his tie, loosens his collar, unbuttons the bottom button on his shirt. He leans forward. She can see down his open shirt. There are iridescent scales catching the light on his neck, spreading out and down to his chest. Mr. Harada? Yes, Ayumi. Do you think people can change? She pivots on her legs, twisting back and forth. Yes, of course. Change into something so wonderful, so strange that you don't know what they might become? What are you talking about? Kiss me. Mr. Harada stared at her. Kiss me. Why couldn't she say it out loud? Her lips strain white against her teeth. She bites her lower lip until she is sure blood will pop and trickle down her chin. She drops a potty training manual on the teacher's desk. What's this? I'm going to get my diving certificate. Really? It's an intensive course. You sure it won't interfere with your school studies? No, sir. I always think of you with your nose in the books, not outside getting your hands dirty. He gives her an approving smile. Always think of you. Always think of you. Always. You. It's kind of late in the year to undertake such a big thing like this, don't you think? She takes off her glasses and twirls them in her fingers. She looks straight at Harada. I dreamed that we were swimming together last night, and you swam up to me and looked deep into my eyes and said, "You are the queen of the sea, and the sea is the mother of life, all life." And you held me close, and you put your lips on, "Ayumi, this isn't appropriate. You're my student and I'm your teacher." I want you to teach me real things, not the things I can get from books on my own. Spending so much time in the water maybe is not such a good idea. But we have to. I'll grow scales. We'll both be as free as the fishes. We'll change into them. We'll be living in the ocean as sea creatures forever. You must never, never speak about this again to anyone. Do you understand? Ayumi jams her lips shut and looks at the floor. Ayumi? Please let me go swimming with you. Silence. I promise not to talk about these things again. I'll think about it. Ayumi's household, Thursday, 6:45 p.m. Ayumi takes book after book from her bookcase and puts them down beside the others on her bed. She flips through them, smiles a faint smile, then with the reverence of a funeral, places them in a large cardboard box marked with a black pen on the side. 500 yen each. Hino Bay Recreation Center, 10:54 a.m. Ayumi plunges into the swimming pool. The weight belt sinks her to the bottom. The instructor gives her the thumbs up, then turns and ignores her just like he did after she gave him the money from selling all her favorite books. She looks around, surrounded by water. Everyone else is so far away. She is alone. If anything went wrong... She closes her eyes. Her heart pounds in her head. Blood rushes in her ears. She hyperventilates. Her eyes are big. She's going to drown down here. She sucks in water with her air. She sputters and coughs, blinded by bubbles escaping from her mouth. She drops her weights and scrambles to the surface. The diving instructor swims over to her. You panicked. He hands Ayumi her weight belt. This time, breathe slow. Breathe deep. Keep calm. Relax. Nothing's going to get you. Sometimes it helps to tell yourself a story to keep your mind focused. Hino Bay High School, Monday, 2 p.m. Ayumi wears a gold badge embroidered on her jacket. She carries a certificate between her stack of textbooks. She wears a big smile on her face as she walks straight to the science classroom. She takes her seat. A strange woman is at the front desk. Her smile fades. She raises her hand. Where's Mr. Harada? He is on indefinite leave. My name is Mrs. Kotani, and I'm the replacement teacher for this class. Hino Bay, Breakwater, Tuesday, 2:43 p.m. Shouldn't you be in school? Teacher's not here today. A taxi idles, parked but running in a slot by the seawall. Ayumi struggles with the air tank as she pulls them up out of the trunk. You need a hand with that, miss? Just a couple of trips. She hauls the gear down to the breakwater. Swim fins, mask under her arms, oxygen tank hanging off of one shoulder. The dive tank slips off her shoulder, bangs off her hip bone, bounces off and rebounds into her legs, giving a dull blow to her knee and shin. She cries out, stumbles, and drops the tank, which rolls on the ground. You alone? She turns back to look at him. Miss, you alone? I heard it's not good to dive all by yourself. Oh, I've got someone. She makes it down to the end of the breakwater. She clambers over the jagged boulders. Ayumi spots a black shape bobbing in the water about 150 meters offshore. It must be him. She dons her scuba gear, nervously strapping and clicking it all into place. She hobbles into the sea, lapping onto the rocks. Once she's up to her chest, she begins paddling out to sea. She looks out toward the horizon. The black shape is gone. She can't see him anymore. She puts the regulator in her mouth and ducks under the water. It's cold and dark. She breathes in. but short and shallow. She coughs. She has to come up for air. She spits out salty seawater and scans the horizon again. Nothing. She's going to have to go out there. Her heart pounds beneath her wetsuit. This is it. She clears her mask and goes under. She swims in slow, steady strokes. She can't help feeling she's being shadowed by something not so far below her. But she fights the enshrouding panic, swallows her fear, and breathes in long, deep breaths. She flashes back to books she's read about the sea. Most of them not factual accounts, of course. Deep treasures hidden within the protective maws of giant clams. Fierce mortal battles between giant squids and deep-diving whales, and the jealous octopus dragging divers to their deaths for daring to encroach on its submarine territory. But she kind of remembers the true story Mr. Harada told her of Nino. Or was that her dream? In any case, she's having trouble remembering it completely. It was about a girl who swam out to sea, alone, to find treasure? A pearl? No, it was to find her lover, missing at sea. And yes, she finally does find him. He's alive. But he's not alone. He's caught in the embrace of Nino. The man's name is Harada, and who is Nino? Nino pulls Harada close, the water lapping against their bare bodies, writhing against him, rubbing off a patina of iridescent scales onto his face and neck. She kisses him all over, runs her tongue along his arm, licks his fingers. Harada twists his head, looks over his shoulder, eyes the girl from within the arms of the tight embrace. Nino turns to see what he's looking at. She hisses a sibilant sigh. "Oh, you brought a pretty one. A little scrawny, perhaps. Pleased to meet you. I am Nino, the first and the last, and you will know the truth of that soon enough." "I'm Ayumi." "Get out of that silly suit of yours. Can't be truly free in the sea until you feel the caress of the salt water on your skin." The girl hugs herself. "It's too cold." "Nonsense. How will you ever feel what it is to be a woman if you can't be naked beside a man?" Ayumi looks at Harada. She lets her mask sink to the depths below. Nino helps her out of her wetsuit. A chemical slick surrounds them, warming the water. As Harada reaches to touch Ayumi, the girl feels Nino come up behind her and envelop her. She wraps her arms around Ayumi and pulls her down. Somewhere, an octopus embraces its prey and drags it down to the bottom, holds it down until it drowns, then feasts on it at its leisure. A crab feeds on the scavenged remains of a muscular organ, still beating. A heart. A sunken heart. The chemical spill reaches the sea floor. The precipice coating everything it touches. A jointed limb telescopes out of the organ and snatches up the crab in its terminating claw. An aortic valve opens up in a tooth-studded maw that bites down on the crustacean, swallowing it whole. An eyelid opens on the veined covering of the organ. An eye blinks, and the bubble of a tear trickles out of its corner and races to the surface to expire in the air. The heart sprouts 3 more limbs and crawls away along the sea bottom, fading into the murky darkness. An empty wetsuit floats on the surface of the sea, bobbing in the gentle swells of the unchanging, ever-changing ocean.
Debbie, Deborah by Shane Migliavacca.
The cat thinks I'm fucking nuts. She may be right. I'm wearing my nicest dress, Dean Martin is on the stereo, and I have a gun to my head. I'm dancing with my dead husband on Valentine's Day. Angel, our cat, died 3 days ago. Her ashes sit on the mantel in an urn next to my husband's. I see her on her favorite spot on the couch, watching me. She really is an angel now. I pull the hammer of the revolver back. I'm ready to join them. Click. Son of a bitch. Empty. Good job, Deborah. I forgot the fucking bullets. I drop the snub nose on the coffee table. I haven't found where Johnny hid the bullets. He bought the gun for me, worried about us being all alone out here in the boondocks. What good is a gun if the bullets are hidden? Excuse me, Mr. Rapist, while I find the bullets to shoot you. Maybe Johnny never got around to buying any. Ain't that a kick in the head, Dean? I drop to the couch, defeated. My mind isn't what it used to be. Grief and despair have pushed everything out to the point that I have trouble dealing with the day-to-day shit. It's for the best, I suppose. I'm not a religious woman, but I'd like to think there was something waiting, you know? After that, I could be with them in some kind of way. If there is a God and suicide is a sin, I better not risk it. Being sent to hell, I'd never see them again. If you ask me, this is hell. This world. Johnny, my Johnny, I miss that lopsided grin of yours. The way your stubble felt when you kissed me. How your hair fell across your eyes when you woke up. The touch of your coarse hands on my shoulders. Gone. All gone. 5.5 years ago, a drunk driver named Dave Robbins. Johnny had been on his way home from work when the bastard ran a red light and struck Johnny's car. I still remember the trooper showing up at work. He stood there in his uniform, looking so out of place. His words were unintelligible as my heart pounded in my ears. They gave that man 10 years in prison. 10 fucking years! He took away our future, and they gave him 10 years. He got out in 4 for good behavior. Good fucking behavior. I dreamed about killing him for so long. How I do it, how I drag it out, make him suffer. I'd even toyed with the idea of killing his family in front of him. But no, there was Angel to think of. The cat, a housewarming present from Johnny, got me through that first grim year. She was there for me when I got home from another dreary day at work, happy to see me, purring her feline heart out. She was such a tiny little thing when he surprised me with her. She hid under the couch for the first couple of days until one night I sat on the couch watching the evening news, waiting for Johnny to come home from work. I felt something small and warm curl up next to me. Now she's gone too. I'm left all alone in this house that used to represent our future together. A house that's become a tomb. The house was so empty and vast when I'd come home from the vet carrying little Angel's ashes in a small container. Nobody there to greet me at the door. I dread the thought of coming home after a day at work to this empty, godforsaken place. But I'll have to. I took a couple sick days, told Emily I had a bug. They don't need to know the real reason. Most of them look at me with some sort of pity, walking on eggshells around me. The others treat me as if this sickness in my heart can simply be sent away, that I should get over it and move on. There is no moving on. I could take some medication, I guess, something to help me, at the cost of this hornet's nest of pain in my stomach, the pain that helps me remember them, that keeps them in my thoughts. Would I lose their memory in a haze of medication? The record ends. I stare at the snub nose. I should really find those bullets. There's other ways I could do it. Pills, sure, or that old razor blade in the bathtub bit. Those are easy enough, I suppose. Hanging myself is off the table. I can't tie knots for shit. Besides, some idiot might think I was trying to get off and died by accident. Shit. Fuck it. The phone rings. I pick it up, looking at the number. It's Catherine Wade from work, probably checking up on me. "Hello, Cat. How are you feeling, Trooper?" she answers in her unbearably cheery voice. I lie. "Oh, okay, just a bit of a bug." "You need anything?" "No, I'm fine, thanks." I want to hate her for caring. But damn it, I just can't. The phone crackles with static. "Aren't you forgetting something, Deb?" another voice asks. "Cat? You there?" I can hear something metallic on the other end. "Have you checked the basement?" "Who is this?" I ask, my voice trembling, but no answer. "God damn it, who is this?" "Are you okay, Deb?" Cat asks, sounding a bit shaken. Yeah, just this bug. I think I need a nap." Before she can finish saying goodbye, I hang up. What just happened? I'm not even sure. I take a deep breath. I get off the couch. Maybe I should just go buy some fucking bullets. Looking out the window, I see I'm not going out anywhere today. The snow is coming down in a heavy white blanket. Frustrated, I turn the TV on. "They're calling it the Valentine's Day blizzard," the weatherman proclaimed, as if he was a proud father praising his golden child. These cocksuckers really piss me off in how much they get off on bad weather. I think they get hard over delivering bad news. "Expect record snowfalls." "Expect me not to give a fuck," I say, wishing about now the gun was loaded so I could shoot the TV. I never hated anybody till Johnny died. Now I can't stand anyone, most of all myself. The smiling weatherman is replaced by a nicely dressed Chinese woman. The day's other big story, all but one of the escaped convicts have been captured. Police gather round an overturned prison bus in a ditch as the anchorwoman goes over the details. Police are still searching for Charles Lee Andrew, convicted serial killer and rapist. He's considered highly dangerous should you spot him. Why do these assholes always have 3 names? Is it a serial killer thing? They linger on his face. He's handsome enough except for the scar over his left eye. Crazy burns hot in those eyes. Even in a photograph you can feel his stare just penetrating your soul. Bored, I walk out to the kitchen. A drink maybe, and a sandwich. Dirty dishes clog one of the 2 sinks. I've let the house go to shit. Haven't felt like cleaning since the cat died. I pour myself a glass of brandy and make a roast beef sandwich. I hold a stainless steel knife in my hands, catching my reflection on the blade. The house isn't the only thing that's gone to shit. I look terrible. My hair's a mess. There's bags under my eyes. Fuck it all. Why should I care how I look? It's all a sick joke. The blade quivers in my hand. So sharp. One of those as seen on TV jobs you get at a Save Mart. Why, I bet if I just took the knife and sliced... "Debbie," a sweet sing-song voice echoes out from the living room. The TV? Has to be. A coincidence. "Deb," the voice giggles. "Who's there?" I call out, feeling a bit embarrassed because it's most likely the TV. I grip the knife, stepping into the short hallway. I walk towards the living room. I can hear a soap opera on the TV. I stop and listen. Under the din of dialogue from the TV, I hear the wind outside, the tick, tick sound of snow and freezing rain against the windows. And then, floorboards creaking with the unmistakable sound of someone walking over them. "Debbie," the voice giggles again. "Come and find me." I storm into the living room, ready to confront the weirdo intruder. "You picked the wrong fucking time!" Empty. I switch the TV off and I listen again. Maybe my mind finally has hitched a ride to Crazy Town. The house is still, silent, save for the wind and snow outside. The furnace in the basement rumbles on, making me flinch. I laugh like a maniac. Tears sting my eyes as laughter gives way to crying. I really have fucking flipped out. Wiping them away, I see them there, reflected in the black of the TV screen, watching me from the hall, darting away before I can turn. Scrambling to my feet, I grab the empty gun and give chase. I can hear them upstairs. Yesterday upon the stair I met a man who wasn't there. He wasn't there again today. Oh, how I wish he'd go away. The voice sang out from somewhere upstairs. I know that poem. From a long time ago, when I was a little girl. I creep up the stairs. No easy feat since they're creaky as hell. A door slams shut somewhere upstairs. How the hell did they get in? I didn't hear anything. Everything is locked. I didn't forget something, right? With a knife in one hand and an empty gun in the other, maybe I can scare the living crap out of them. Yeah, right. Why am I scared? I was thinking about ending my life moments ago. No, it's not death that frightens me. It's what could happen in place of that. Rape, being maimed, being paralyzed, a coma. Those things frighten me. A living hell I can't escape. I search the upstairs trying to look as badass as possible with an empty gun. That's when it hits me. I am fucking nuts. There's not a living soul up here. I search every room, every nook, every cranny, under the beds, in the closets. Not a sign of anybody being here other than me. Nothing out of place, nothing touched. Feeling tired, I walk into the bathroom connected to the bedroom. I run cold water over my face and stare at my haggard reflection in the mirror. Through the open door, I see the bed. Sitting there, legs hanging over the side, a dark figure. Watching me. I spin around, nearly slipping on the tiled floor. Who the fuck? I blurt out. The dark, featureless figure, almost an outline of a young woman, its long hair and pigtails hang down on black shoulders. It tilts its head and waves. Hey, Debbie, long time no see. I gawk at it for a few minutes, speechless. There's something about this thing, this girl, that seems familiar. Something's been buzzing around the back of my head all day, wanting to get out. Is this it? I should feel scared, yet I don't. I feel oddly reassured. What's wrong, sunshine? No hello for good old Maddie? Maddie? I stammer, my mouth suddenly dry. Was that you running around the house? None other. Don't you remember, Deb? How we used to? I rub my head. There's a stabbing pain. Something wants out. Poor old Deb went and grew up. It's a delusion, that's all. I walk out of the bathroom waving my arms about. Go away! You're a figment of my deteriorating mental state. You're not real. Good old Maddie slides off the bed, sauntering towards me. Not real, she pokes me with an ebony finger. That real enough for you? I flinch as I involuntarily back up. You made me. Poor little Deb. Her parents always fighting. Nobody at school likes her. She reads too much. She's too much of a tomboy. Boo-hoo. Maddie mocks me, making a tearful face. Somebody needed a friend, and Maddie got the call. Her voice suddenly changes, becoming cold. Until somebody tossed me aside. Maddie backs away from me, her gaze locked on me. But I didn't go away. Couldn't. That figure in the corner of your eye, that shadow in the dark room, that was me. She does a little jig. You can't kill yourself, Deb. I won't let you. If I made you, I can unmake you. I grab a small ceramic statue on the dresser and throw it at this Maddie. It bounces off her head when I expected it to pass right through. Ow! She hollers, the manic joyfulness gone from her voice. Bitch! She runs out of the bedroom holding her head. I can hear her feet on the stairs as she goes down. Looking down at the plush royal blue carpet, I see a trail of crimson. Blood. I follow Maddie's blood downstairs to the kitchen. Bloody handprints on the door frame welcome me as I enter. Maddie is bent over the sink, washing the blood off of her forehead with a wet towel. Fuck you, Deb. You always did have a temper. She turned to glare at me, a gash of bright crimson and her black forehead. She holds the wet towel to it as she finishes off my glass of brandy, leaving behind bloody fingerprints on the glass. I'm sorry, I think. You can feel pain? Well, no, duh. Of course I can feel pain. She pours herself more brandy, gulping it down in one go. This is some good shit, by the way. Got any bandages? I go to the downstairs bathroom, grabbing some bandages from the medicine cabinet. When I come back, Maddie and her bloodstains are gone. Suddenly, I feel lightheaded. My head is buzzing. I take more aspirin than the recommended dosage. Lying down on the couch, I feel as if I'm melting into it, becoming one with the upholstery. I wake up sometime later. The sun is low in the sky. Snow still falling, but not as heavy as before. My head feels better now. Maybe that was all a dream. The snub nose sits on the coffee table next to the knife. I'd left those upstairs. Yes, it was all a dream. I'd just fallen asleep on the couch and dreamed the whole damn thing. A fever dream. The floorboards upstairs creak, and my heart skips a beat. This is an old house, it's just settling, that's all. I pick up the gun, still no bullets. That hasn't changed. What also hasn't changed is it's still fucking Valentine's Day. Why couldn't I have just slept through the rest of it, instead of the day that won't end? Dragging on, not letting me forget what I've lost. I remember one Valentine's Day, Johnny made his specialty for dinner, spaghetti and salad. We watched an old western on the TV, something starring the guy that played Superman's dad. It had been an exhausting week for both of us, and we fell asleep on the couch halfway through the film, my head on his shoulder. The holiday didn't end up in a moment of passion. It ended in a moment of mundane tenderness. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. A knock at the front door startles me out of my fond memory. I wait, holding my breath. Perhaps it was just a noise and not somebody at the door. Some snow falling off the roof or the like. Then another knock comes, ruining my fabrication, followed rapidly by a third. "Hello?" a man asks from the other side of the door. "Is anybody there?" "Don't answer it," Maddie says, dropping into the recliner in the corner, the chair's old springs straining from the sudden weight. "Fuck me," I blurted out in surprise. "Where did you come from?" I notice her features have become more defined now, the darkness lessening somewhat. Her head no longer has a bandage, nor a bloody gash. "I've been hovering about, sleepyhead." She tilts the recliner back. "You know you talk in your sleep?" Maddie looks up at the ceiling. "Who's Rex?" Johnny used to kid me about talking in my sleep. Rex, why does that name seem familiar? "Hello?" The knocking at the door becomes more aggressive. "I can hear you in there. Please come to the door." The man pauses. His voice sounds strained. "I need help." I pick up the empty gun, holding it like a magical charm capable of warding off evil as I approach the front door. I look through the peephole at the man outside. He stands on the porch, a desperate look etched on his face. His hair looks recently shaved off, and he's wearing snow-covered clothes and a Band-Aid on his forehead over his left eye. The man looked over his shoulder anxiously before turning back to the door. "Please, you have to hurry," the man pleads as he knocks again. I reach for the deadbolt. "I wouldn't do it," Maddie warns me. "Shush." I turn the lock on the door, only partly convinced there's really someone out there and it's not another delusion. I pull open the door a little, peeking through the crack at this unwelcome stranger. His clothes look ill-fitting, a size or two too big for his frame. Behind him I notice his tracks through the ankle-deep snow. "Yes?" "You took long enough," the man grumbles. "Excuse me?" The man shivers, looking around. I'm freezing out here. Can I come in?" Can I trust him? Should I? What are you doing way out here in a storm? Suddenly, violently, he pushes the door open, knocking me to the floor. I land hard on my back. The air pushes out of my lungs, the empty gun sliding across the floor. "I don't have time for your shit," he angrily screams as he slams the door shut. Gasping for air, I try to get to my feet, get a weapon. It's no use. The man pushes me to the floor with a snow-covered boot. "Is there anyone here? Are you alone?" His head darts back and forth as he takes in the room. He gives me another love tap from his booted foot. Before retrieving the gun from the floor, he checks the cylinder, laughing. "What were you gonna do, wave this around and use harsh language to scare me?" Maddie slides up behind him. "Told you not to let him in." "I didn't let him in," I managed, able to breathe again. The man looks around, perplexed. "The fuck you talking about, lady?" "What do you want?" I ask. "I don't have any money." "Oh, we'll see about that." He pulls me up, dragging me to the couch. Both our eyes go to the knife on the coffee table before meeting again. He hurls me into the couch. When I manage to sit up, he hits me in the face. Hard. Hard enough that the world goes black. When my eyes open again, the man stands over me, the knife in his hand. Just what the hell were you up to here? He leans forward, giving me a good view of the knife. I'll ask you again. Is there anybody else here? I shake my head, noticing I've been tied to a dining room chair in the living room. I can taste blood on my lips. If you're lying, I can make it very unpleasant for you. I glare at him, more angry at myself than him. For once I should have listened to the delusion prancing around my house. As he looks down at me, I recognize who's invaded my home. Charles Lee Andrew, serial killer and rapist. With this revelation, a stark fear creeps into my belly. Yes, I want to die, but not like this, and not by his hand. I'm gonna go poke around. You sit tight. He goes to leave and stops. Last chance. There's nobody here, right? Because if there is, they're fucked. I shake my head again. Satisfied, he leaves me alone as he searches the house. Our house. Johnny and me and little Angel. He has no right to be here. Fear begins to give way to anger, this time directed towards this interloper. I can hear him in the kitchen, opening and closing the fridge. He walks back into the room eating a leftover chicken leg. Good chicken. You make it? He smirks a greasy chicken smile. I stare holes through him, imagining his body being riddled with bullets, jerking around in a death dance as flesh and bone are shredded in a hail of lead. Of course, that would leave a hell of a mess, one I really wouldn't want to clean up. You know, you look like shit, he remarks, setting a plate with the half-finished chicken leg down at the coffee table. I mean, other than where I socked you in the kisser. I watched as he looks out the window. This is perfect. With the storm and this place being in the middle of nowhere in East Jesus, the cops won't be around. I can definitely lie low and catch a breath. He bends down close to me and locks me in his gaze. And I definitely plan on having some fun before I go. He tries kissing me on the lips. I manage to pull away and he kisses my cheek. I turn my head in disgust, seeing Johnny's urn on the mantel. I start to cry. I don't want him to see this. Not my Johnny. The bastard notices my tears, sees the urn and the picture of Johnny next to it. Aw, what are you crying about, sweet cheeks? He picks up the picture, gawking at it with those soulless eyes before turning his attention to the urn. This your dead hubby? Fuck you, I spit out between sobs. You will. Don't worry. You will. He drops the picture to the floor, shattering the glass. First, I think I'll look around and then freshen up. Maybe take a nice shit and see if you still have some of your old man's duds. Seeing your little shrine here, I'm willing to bet that's a yes. And then I'm left alone. Left alone to think about this mess I'm in. Mess. It's a fucking nightmare. I can hear him moving about the first floor, ransacking the place and making comments, stoking the boiling anger inside me. I struggle against the ropes holding me to this chair. I flex my muscles, imagining myself bursting through the ropes with sheer force of will. When this fails, I slump in the chair, tired and defeated. Maybe I will die this day, just not how I envisioned. Come on, you can do it, kiddo! Maddie sits down on the floor in front of me. Easy for you to fucking say, I grumble. Why don't you help me? She lies down on her side, propped up on one elbow. It don't work like that. Gotta do it yourself. That fucking figures. Cheese it, Maddie warns me. I could hear him coming back down the hall. After a tense couple of minutes waiting, he appears in the doorway. Not much down here. Got a question, though. What's with the lock on the basement door? I shrug. I don't know. Doesn't everybody have that? Sure, I'll deal with that later. For now, I'm headed upstairs. Hope this shithole gets better on the second floor. Maddie sticks her tongue out as he walks away. What a dick! She turns back to me. Come on, now's your chance while he's screwing around upstairs. I'm thinking, I say before letting out a loud fart. Maddie backs away, waving at the air. Oh fuck, really? Sorry, just the stress. I think something died, Maddie coughs. You could kill him with that reek. Sure, you can smell that, yet you can't help me. Hey, I don't make the rules. She stands, holding her nose. I'm gonna sit this one out. Maddie leaves. Finally, a chance to think. I can hear him upstairs doing God knows what. Maddie's right. I have to get free. Unable to do anything but look around the room and think, I start to form a desperate plan. By the time he comes back downstairs dressed in some of Johnny's clothes, night had fallen outside, and I had a plan. He now has a piece of paper in his hand. He holds it out, showing me a newspaper clipping about a missing man. Who's this? You got all these clippings about the search for this guy. He picks up Johnny's picture from the floor, shattered glass falling off. Don't look like your husband, he grins. Did you have something on the side? My heart races. Somewhere deep in my mind, a loud banging starts. A door that desperately wants to open begins to crack. I know who you are. Charles Lee Andrew. You're on the run. He grins, a devil's grin. My reputation precedes me. Then you know how dangerous I am. I know you're just a sad, sick shit who gets off hurting women. Then you should be nice to me. I ignore his words, watching how my words hit him. What's wrong? Daddy beat you? Mommy didn't love you enough? Boo fucking who, Charlie? I fake cry. This was too much for him. He storms over to the mantel, grabbing Johnny's urn. Shut your fucking mouth, whore! He opens the urn, forcing my husband's remains into my mouth. I choke on the ashes, my eyes burning. Finished, he throws the urn down across the room. That's one way to suck your husband, the son of a bitch laughs. I stain for air, coughing out clouds of black. That's all you got, pussy boy? I say, hoping to push him further. I bet Mommy used to touch you and call you her special little boy, and you liked it. Give you a nice hard one, did it? I smile with ash-covered lips. No, maybe it was Daddy who did the touching. Cunt, he screams, every letter filled with venom. Lifting me and the chair off the ground, he slams me down on the floor. I scream out in pain as my arms are pinned to the floor by my own weight. Not wasting any time, my now numb hand gropes around on the carpet. Come on. They have to be here somewhere. Those shards of glass from Johnny's picture. If I can just grab one and get enough time to use it. But this enraged asshole isn't giving me much of a chance. He looms over me, kicking at my downed body. I need to get a look at the floor. Thankfully, this douchebag didn't see fit to tie my legs to the chair. I kick out. After a couple of tries, I score a direct hit, hitting him in the balls, doubling the bastard over and buying me some time. I roll over onto my knees, my eyes searching the carpet. There. A couple of big shards of glass. I roll over onto my back, trying to keep the gap of the chair's back even with the glass. I keep my eyes glued to the bastard as my fingers run over the floor, feeling for more. Charlie glares at me as he clutches himself in pain. The jagged glass cuts into my fingers when I find it. I poke my arms a couple of times as I line the glass up with my bonds, the glass slicing into my hands as easy as it does the rope restraining me. I feel my hands come free as Charlie limps toward me. Anger so intense I can feel its heat, boils out of his very being. Freed of the chair, I push away from it, kicking it into his path. Pained, he barely dodges it. His face red with rage, Charlie lunges at me, his hands at my throat. I strike out with a shard of glass. Thank you, officer. I appreciate it. I smile at the trooper on my porch. Just doing our job, ma'am. The storm really hindered our search. Well, as you can see, I really got snowed in here. Not that it matters. You're the first visitor I've had in ages. After a little small talk, the trooper leaves. I watch him leave, locking the door as he drives off. I lucked out. I was shoveling off the porch when the trooper showed up. My cut hands were covered up by black and purple gloves. If he'd seen them, would he have known? Would he have probed further? I don't know. I pick up a set of keys from the stand by the front door, my hands still sensitive as they begin to heal. I walk to the basement door, unlocking the silver padlock and stepping down into the darkness. The nauseating smell of feces and piss burn my eyes and nose. I need to buy a couple dozen air fresheners for down here. My hand runs over the wall, stopping at the light switch. The basement lights hiss to life below me. I feel as if a great milestone has been taken off my shoulders. During that fight with Charles Lee Andrew, the door, buried deep in the back of my mind, finally flew open. Just in time, too. I step onto the cold cement floor and I'm greeted by a pitiful, sobbing grunt. Music to my ears. "How are we doing today, Charlie?" Chained to a wall in a pair of stained briefs, my new pet groans into his cloth gag, his bare chest and back a map of scars and bruises. I wheel out my tray of toys, selecting a nasty-looking box cutter. "Are we ready for playtime?" Charles Lee Andrew, once a feared killer, tries to plead through his cloth gag, no doubt begging me to let him go. "Don't worry, love. The cops don't even think you're in this county anymore." From the other side of the basement, chains rattled as he stirred. A thin, filthy man emerged from the shadows, crawling on all fours. His knees bore the scars of 2 bullet wounds. "Don't worry, Rex. Mommy won't forget you again," I coo. I turn back to Charlie. "I think Rex is a little jealous of you. Don't worry, you two will have plenty of time to get to know each other." Perched on the stairs, Maddie watches with delight as I begin to slice. Hister Hysteria by Joe Salt. Alicia lay in the dark, someplace warm and damp. She felt heavy, almost like being underwater. Her movement was slow, the resistance in the air around her making her feel tired. She looked around at her surroundings. Strange shapes were barely visible in the dark, jutted at bizarre angles. What were they? Where was she? The last thing she remembered was getting ready for bed, brushing her teeth and changing into her comfy yellow pajamas she'd had since she was 15. Was this some sort of alien abduction? She half-joked to herself. "Hello?" She called out into the space around her, becoming aware at how total the silence was until she spoke. A few seconds passed and she felt her heart start to race. She was alone. A dread came over her as the hairs on the back of her neck stood at attention. Throughout her life, she hated being alone. She loved being around people and learning their stories. She loved learning how other people thought and their points of view. It fascinated her. There was no one now for her to talk to. She was alone with her own thoughts. And that was scary enough for her. Growing up with no self-esteem wasn't unique to Alicia, but the constant failures in her writing career took its toll on her until she gave up and just took the first job she could find to pay the bills. She worked at a pet store for a little over minimum wage. That was where she met John. He was a slacker that would always make her laugh with his minimum wage, minimum effort attitude. Slowly, the time she spent writing was less and less. She couldn't remember the last time she wrote anything. She sat up on the bed she was laying on. Her abdomen hurt. Instinctively, she placed her right hand on the pain and pulled it back as an electric sharpness shot through her body. Her hand felt odd. There was something on her hand, but it was too dark to see. It felt tacky, and her thoughts instantly went to blood. This time, with more caution, she ran her fingers over her abdomen. There was definitely an injury there. Blood drying. Was her wound fresh? The blood didn't feel warm to her. A tear began to form in her eye. There was a scuttling in the dark. Something off to the right. How big was this room, she wondered. "Hello?" She called out again. "Is someone there?" Again, she heard the shuffling. She strained to see in the almost complete darkness. Alicia held her breath for a moment, trying to pick out the sound, but it had stopped. It was almost like it knew she was listening for it. She clutched her stomach and headed towards one of the shapes she could make out in the dark. The tile floor was cold on her bare feet. 2 steps later, she felt a sharp pain in her foot and fell to the floor with a gasp of pain. Her stomach felt like fire as well from the drop. She ran her hand down to her foot and found a piece of broken glass embedded in the flesh of her heel. Alicia tried to grip it with her hands, but they were still coated with blood. It took several tries before she pulled the glass out. She held it up to her face, but There wasn't enough light to see the culprit of her foot pain. She wondered if her stomach was injured by the same glass. Did she fall through a window? The shuffling came again, and another noise. She couldn't make it out. Alicia stared in the direction of the noise and tried to pull her legs under her, protectively. Pain raced up her legs as she realized the floor was covered in broken glass. She winced, but tried to remain silent, listening for the only sound that wasn't her. It was horrifying and comforting all in one. She wasn't alone, but what was with her in this room? The shuffling was still faint, but she felt like it was getting closer. Who was out there? She ran her fingers gingerly down her legs, plucking out the small pieces of glass as she heard the shuffling getting ever closer. "Who are you?" she screamed into the darkness, frustration fueling the yell. A small noise, a gurgle maybe? What the hell is going on? She threw the handful of glass she had in the direction of the sounds as she tried to fight back the tears forming. She wouldn't admit it to another living being, but she was terrified. Inside, she mocked herself. She hated being alone, but now she wasn't, and she hated it even more. The irony wasn't lost on her. "Come on, Alicia, you stupid bitch, get it together," she whispered and tried to find a clear part of the floor to put her hand down so she could get back to her feet and leave this place. Suddenly, there was a flash, and for just a second, she could see. It was so quick it didn't really register enough to make sense. The light was so bright. A loud crash followed, a thunderstorm, she thought. She shuffled towards the shape in the dark, the only other visible thing that existed at the moment. She heard the other shuffling stop for a second. Alicia's imagination ran away with her, and she pictured the thing in the dark to be listening, to hone in on her in the dark. She stopped moving. She stopped breathing. If she could stop existing at that moment, she feared she might take that option. She looked at the shape, the island of substance in the sea of darkness, the only piece of reality in this insane situation. It was roughly the size of a table, she thought. Only a few feet away now, but so was the shuffling, and getting closer. As quietly as she could, she backed herself up to the table and faced the shuffling noise, waiting for another flash of lightning, another glimpse of her situation. 10 seconds passed as she heard the rain falling outside, but no lightning. It was as if the universe was toying with her. The shuffling was so close, she tensed up. Finally, a flash appeared and she screamed. Not a scream like at a funhouse, but a cold-blooded, bone-chilling scream of sheer terror. She finally saw what was scuffling towards her. It was, It couldn't be, she thought. I finally lost it. I went nuts and now I'm trapped in this hell. A smile began to form as she thought of the absurdity of it all. Another flash. That fear returned as her eyes fixed on it, only 3 feet from her own. There it was, not imagined. A fetus dragging its umbilical cord. The cord was frayed at the end. Chewed, she thought, with horror as she took in the scene. Darkness closed in and she prayed for the first time in her life. Prayed that another flash would appear and not leave her alone. Prayed for the abomination she saw was just a figment of her imagination. Whether through divine intervention or the force of Mother Nature, her prayers were answered as another flash illuminated the trashed doctor's office she was currently occupying. The fetus's face was facing her, its mouth opening and closing in silent screams. Its tiny face resembled her own, she noticed, as her heart skipped a beat. Was this her child? She clutched her stomach and, on the next flash, looked down at the hospital gown, covered in blood, she was wearing. Was this where the wound came from? Alicia gripped the cold metal table and pulled herself up with a grunt. Fire filled her as she laid on her belly and looked over the edge of the table. The fetus was still there, moving closer and closer, a trail of blood behind it, its eyes focused on hers. They were the same green color as her own, its tiny arms pulling it closer and closer. "Mother?" it asked, in her own voice. "Why didn't you love me, Mother?" Alicia's spine froze in place. She couldn't move. She couldn't speak. Fear had locked her down on top of that table. Darkness. "No words for your daughter, Mother?" the fetus said as it crawled closer to the table. Alicia had to peer straight over the edge to see it. She was so glad she was on top of the table, a safe place from the monster below. "I don't have a daughter," Alicia managed to spit out between short, scared breaths. A flash of lightning illuminated the room. "Then what am I, Mother?" the fetus asked, and sat up, crossing its legs. "Am I not real?" Darkness. You can't be real," Alicia yelled out. A flash of light lit up the fetus's face. "Oh no? Do I not bleed?" the fetus said, gesturing around with its chubby arms at the floor around it. "Oh wait, this is mostly your blood, even though when you shed it, it was both of ours," the fetus explained, rubbing the blood into its skin. It sighed at her and picked up a piece of broken glass in its tiny hand. Its eyes met hers as it ran the glass across its wrist. Blood poured out of the wound. "There we go," it said, and giggled in a baby's voice. "I do have my own." Darkness. "What the hell are you?" Alicia yelled out, sitting up on the table to get farther away from the monstrosity below. "I thought it was obvious," the fetus said, raising itself to its feet in the light of a strike. It started to swing the umbilical cord around. With each revolution, it grew a few inches. After a couple of seconds, the fetus let go of the cord, and the end shot out above Alicia in the darkness. She heard a wet slap above her. Another flash of lightning showed her a hospital light above her. The cord wrapping around the handle reminded her of Indiana Jones's whip. She turned back towards the fetus but almost fell off the table in recoiled fear. It was now on the table with her. The storm outside intensified. Flashes were coming almost regularly now. It was a strobe light at a party, and just as noisy with the thunder. Still, she had no problem hearing the fetus speak. "No hug for your daughter? You're not a very good mother, Mother," the fetus said, and took a tiny footstep toward her. A bloody footprint was left on the stainless steel table. "Stay where you are!" Alicia yelled out. A crack of thunder added punctuation to her angry demand. "But Mother, I'm hungry," the fetus said and smiled, a smile of wicked teeth, jagged and black. She followed the fetus's gaze until she realized it was looking at her chest. "No," she whispered, her voice cracking in fear. "Am I to starve now?" the fetus asked, taking another step closer. "It wasn't bad enough you tore me out, but you want to watch me wither away and die? Did I do something awful to you in a past life, Mother?" A surge of adrenaline flowed through Alicia, and she kicked out, sending the fetus flying into the darkness. She heard the thud as it landed somewhere near the bed she woke on. Then she heard a laugh. It was so much like her own, she lost sight on the fetus in the shadows of the room. "Stay away from me!" she yelled out, and used the next flash to find the door. She raced off the table towards it. She heard feet slapping on broken glass and tile, and when she reached the handle, she grabbed the soft, bloody torso of the fetus. She felt the umbilical cord in her hand, like cold, wet penne pasta. "A mother's touch," the fetus said with a sarcastic sneer. "I expected it to be warmer. Tell me, Mother, Why did you remove me from the oven? I wasn't done cooking yet." "I didn't do this!" she yelled. "Well, it certainly wasn't me. I was floating around having a great dream. Then I was awoken when you yanked me out." The fetus finished with a yell and bit her hand. She drew it back, but the fetus clutched on and jumped up her arm. She grabbed the door and yanked it open, hoping for help, for a savior. But there was just more darkness. The hall she imagined to be full of people, doctors and nurses helping people, was only a dark tunnel. "Feed me, Mother. I hunger," it said, and stabbed into her breast with a piece of broken glass. She screamed out in pain and blood began to run down her chest. "Feed me!" "Alicia," a voice called out. She didn't recognize it. "Alicia, your surgery was a success. Wake up now." Alicia opened her eyes, and the darkness left. She looked into the face of a nurse over her bed. "Your hysterectomy was a success. How do you feel?" She reached her hands down to her stomach and felt pain. "We had to remove the uterus through an incision. Your small frame made it impossible to come out your vagina. You will be sore for a while, but you'll be fine. I think we minimized any chance of scarring," the nurse said with a smile. Alicia started to laugh. Each spasm sent pain racing through her. It was just an anesthesia dream. She was fine. The fetus was just her imagination. She sighed with relief and ran her fingers through her hair. Her hand fell to her breast. She peeked under her hospital gown. There was a cut across her breast. She looked back up at the nurse, but she was alone in the room. She turned her attention to the door and watched it as it slowly closed, cutting out the light. Then she heard the shuffling on the floor. I Had Mothman's Baby by Daniel Wilder, a weekly spooky original. Earl entered the mobile home located in Lot 151 of the Comf E trailer park at roughly 9:45 a.m., but the inside of that residence was as black as a moonless night, save for a few beams of light that weakly pierced the room from some random cigarette burn holes on the makeshift blackout curtains that hung from rods starting to bow from the weight. The air was sweet with the heady elixir of dollar store wine gone sour, weed, and what could possibly be a week-old filet-o-fish sandwich from the local Big M. And of course, that old hoary chestnut, piss. Not content with the redneck aromatherapy he was getting at no charge, Earl turned on the flashlight on his smartphone to discover he wasn't in a mere trailer. Oh no, this was surely the den of some dragon that had confused absolute shit for treasure. Everywhere he shined the light, there were piles of pizza boxes, beer cans, and tabloids. Hello?" he cried with a trembling voice. Only silence. Well, silence and a cat hissing somewhere from under a nearby mountain of debris answered his call. Suddenly, from his left, he saw what at first appeared to be a scarecrow with large black eyes leap from behind a lazy boy festooned with porno mags and half-empty jars of Vaseline. As the creature charged him and smashed him to the ground, he saw it was, in truth, a scrawny woman wearing large sunglasses. "Jesus, Verline, you scared the unholy hell out of me!" "Shut your cocksucker and turn that damn light off," Verline hissed. Earl complied and Verline grabbed his hand with a grip like iron and led him through the filth to the kitchen. Though how she saw where they were going in the inky darkness, with those glasses on no less, he couldn't say. Soon Earl found himself sitting at Verline's table in her completely dark kitchen, which, amazingly, didn't smell as bad as the previous room. Mainly just some unidentified wet paper smell filled the air. "You, look well," Earl managed. "Bullshit," Verline spat. Literally, the flecks of phlegm she dislodged hit Earl in thick, hot globs. "I look like a plop of cat barf left to dry on a hot August sidewalk." Did you call me here just to discuss your looks? No, I called you here because you're the only one I fucked in Stumpville Holler with any kind of media clout. Statistically, that doesn't seem extremely improbable, Earl said, itching his crotch by reflex. Look, I know you're calling me a whore with your fancy learning words, and you ain't wrong neither, but damn it, I have a story of the century here. Here in the comfy? No, you idiot, in all of Stumpville Holler. Hell, maybe the entire world. You know the Leader Gazette doesn't pay for stories. I'm not in it for any cash. I want to warn other girls so they don't make the same mistakes I have. I think over half the girls have made the mistakes you have with the same men. Fair, but the mistake I made last was with no man that ever walked this earth. Christ, I'll bite. Lay it on me. It was round about last Thur. Earl pressed record on his phone's video option, though why he chose that, in a pitch-black room, is a mystery for another day. Okay, you can start now. Damn it, I already did. Well, take 2 then. Fine. It was around about last Oh, turds, my battery died. Feel for your left. There's a charger cord right there. For a 10? I don't know. It's for one of them with the small hole. Should work. Let me see. For crap's sake, Earl, this story is going to rip reality to bits, and here we are monkey fucking around with your phone? Can't you just write shit down? I could, but my wrist cramps when I write by hand too much, plus it's completely dark in here. The sound of Earl's phone connecting to a viable charging source rang out. See? All good. Okay. Go. It was around about last Thursday, and I went down to Sly's for a drink. I had a few and started to zone out watching the $1 Million movie. That's when the door flew open and he walked in. He was dressed in a large fur coat and he wore a hat and scarf that covered his head. I couldn't see any detail about him at all, but goddamn did he get me horny. Local whore wants to screw. How's that for a headline? Laugh it up, Brainiac. You won't be laughing soon. Is that a threat? Consider it a promise. Oh, I always liked it when you played rough. Well, buckle up, sweetheart, because old Verlene is going to take you to some tough turf pronto. Anyway, over he saunters and he sits right down at the bar next to me, and I was mesmerized, only at the time I didn't realize it was that wing powder of his that was making me swoon so hard. Wing powder? Yeah, you see, this fellow was more moth than man. Moth? Man, like the Mothman from over in Point Pleasant? They both spat after the mention of their ages-old rival town. The very same. Well, what was he doing in Stumpville Holler? From my experience, looking to get laid. He certainly picked the right gal. I should take offense, but when you're right, you're right. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself, so he parks it next to me, and we begin with the small talk. He tells me he's a vacuum cleaner salesman working for Indrid Cold, LLC, selling the suckers door to door. And he just picked up the Stumpville Holler territory. Funny thing, though, he doesn't so much tell me this, but rather puts the information straight into my mind. Nothing much there to get in the way of his message. I don't have to take this shit from you. You totally do, though. Yeah, she said knowingly. Continue. Anyway, he tells me his whole life story, how he grew up as an outcast, how his first kiss was with his cousin. Gross. Should I remind you that we are cousins? Good point. Long story short, I invite him back here and he took off that coat, but I instantly realized he was just unfurling a pair of big old moth wings that he used to mimic a coat. What about the hat and scarf? Those were real. Amazing, right? But I assure you that what was underneath was anything but human. But you did it with him anyways? Remember that powder I mentioned earlier? That crap flew everywhere when he spread those damned wings, and I was powerless as that devil dust covered me. I had flashes of Patrick Swayze in baseball, and when I woke up in the morning, my lover from beyond the stars had vanished. But my belly was swollen, and I had a case of the puke, something fierce. You were pregnant? Yeah, and extremely allergic to sunlight, hence the curtains. Still am, too. So this pregnancy? It went quick, yeah. A day or two of craving pickles and sub sauce, a few days of crying, but it was legit. I peed on a stick or two and it all checked out. Did you consult a doctor? No, hell no! What would I tell them? Hey doc, I think I have some alien larva in my womb. Care to take a look or spray some Raid up that bitch? I see your point. So I holed up here and I got the urge to make a nest right quick. So I hoarded anything that brought me any sense of being at ease. Junk food, porn, and there was one craving I couldn't resist. Vaseline. I ate that shit like a high-quality French onion dip, spread across crackers, chips, anything that could get in my mouth faster and faster. Not to mention lip balm. Strange and, nauseating. Don't judge a woman what is with child. Never would I dream of it, my fair lady. You know, the fact that you speak like Shakespeare and live in a festering armpit like Stumpville Holler makes you look like a bigger award-losing dumbass than all of us in town combined, right? You resemble that remark more than most. Thank you. That's mighty sweet of you. Now, where was I? Eating chapstick as one so often does. Huh? Oh, right, the Vaseline. So I ate that stuff for days, at least 2 of them, and then finally I fell asleep. You were awake for 48 hours eating petroleum jelly the entire time? Sure was. It never occurred to you that that was strange? It occurred, I just didn't care. It was that damn powder, I tell you. I'm sensing you've had, plenty of powder lately. Damn you, Earl, I am not high. Right, yeah. Then, what happened? Well, sometime during my nap, I sat up in bed and puked that jelly up all over my cooch. I think I'll change that to, groin in the piece, if that's okay with you. Do what you must, Earl. Just make sure people heed my words. I'll do my level-headed best, Verline. So anyway, I woke up with my pubes itching something fierce. Then they came out in clumps, but I saved them in a jar just in case you think eggheads may need to give them a once-over after they read your piece. After this goes live, I may need to weave them into a coat to stay warm on the streets I'll doubtlessly be living on. You always was a kinky one, Earl. You get that from our grandmother. Both crossed themselves at the mere mention of the woman. That's when I noticed my entire private area was swollen and growing longer. That barf jelly had made my skin stretchy and helped keep things well lubricated. What does it say that that's the second most gross thing I associate you with? What's number 1, the sperm burp incident? Earl shivered. Yes, may it never be spoken of again. May it never be spoken of again, Verline repeated in agreement, shivering as well. Shall we continue? Against all common sense, I'm gonna have to say yes. Things kept getting longer and longer until my whole lower half looked like a throbbing potato with 2 tiny legs kicking on either side. And then... yeah... well, things kept vibrating and churning until my vag opened up wide as a hound's yawn and a big old egg rolled on out. You, laid an egg? Yes, Mel Tillis, I sure did. What did you do with it? Well, once my parts shrunk back down, I sat on it. Sat on it? Yup, right in my lazy boy. For how long? I don't know, a few hours, a few days. Anyway, pretty soon that egg got to rocking and rolling, and before long it started to crack right open. Earl pinched the bridge of his nose and sighed. He waved for Verline to continue. I don't know what I was expecting to crawl out of that shell-covered hell, but a giant maggot wasn't it, that's for sure. Earl gagged, but quickly regained his cool when he remembered the massively unreliable narrator spinning this yarn. Are you fucking me? Not yet. Is that still on the table? No, God no. I meant, are you just making this up? Seriously, what on earth would I stand to gain from this? My vagina looks like a basketball hoop and I literally screwed a space monster. This is a new low even for me. Point taken. So your larva, my baby, your baby, my apologies, accepted. Anyway, what about it? What did you do with it? I fed it, first of all. Like, with your breast? No, I gave it a plate of wings and a Coors to wash it down. Yes, with my breast, and guess what? It leaked pure petroleum jelly. It was like liquid gold for my offspring. Then what? Well, that was 2 days ago, and after that I discovered a fun fact. My pride and joy was attracted to light. And I also couldn't help but notice it had shed its skin and now looked like a charming cross between a toddler and a gypsy moth. That's when I decided to take a mental health break and shut out the world beyond these trailer walls. Earl had to admire the near Greek tragedy laid out before him, child sired by a godlike being to a mortal woman, albeit one that oozed Vaseline from her nipples, but still a mortal woman besodden with a being she could scarcely understand, a star-lost wonder stranded on a cruel earth. I imagine it's hungry again. You want to see the little fucker? Wait, it's here now? Sure, where else would it be? This is its home sweet home. I don't know, it never crossed my mind that it would be here. It is, here, let me turn on some lights. A flashlight beam cut through the darkness. From somewhere deep within the mobile home came the sound of refuse being knocked asunder. Here, boy, here, Aloysius. You named it after Grandpa? I promised my mama I would. The sound of multiple skittering footsteps filled the trailer. Verlaine swung the flashlight in wild arcs, one of which illuminated her face. Earl recoiled at the sight of her parchment skin and radiation-burned eyes, now devoid of sunglasses, that wept tears of opal-colored pus down her sunken cheeks. Here, Al, come out and meet your cousin Earl, now. The footfalls grew even closer until suddenly they stopped just left of where Verlaine was sitting. She turned the beam on her spawn. Isn't he a sight? Earl felt the vomit rise and splash against the back of his teeth, but against all odds he managed to swallow his puke down with a mighty gulp. There in the flashlight illumination stood a being, part insect, part human, and the nastiest element of both. It looked at him with eyes equal parts his grandmother and a gypsy moth he squashed on his prized begonias a few weeks back. It's beautiful, ain't he? It was no sooner than when Verlaine uttered those words that her baby's eyes lit up like two rubies forged in hell's inferno. Oh, he's doing his thing on you. Look away, Earl. I can't. Don't look him in the eye. It was too late for any warning. Earl had looked into those eyes and he was transfixed like a deer in headlights. Al, you stop that this instant! Earl's eyes swelled and began seeping a viscous fluid that smelled of tuna fish and cinnamon. What is happening? I think he's fixing to... Before Verlaine could finish her words, Al had extended his razor-sharp proboscis and jammed it through Earl's skull. Stop eating your cousin, you son of a bitch! Verlaine was too late in her reprimand, as Al siphoned Earl's cerebral fluid. Not to mention various other bodily fluids, in a fraction of a second, and left only a withered husk in his wake. Earl's corpse fell to the litter-strewn floor in an unceremonious heap. Al retracted his feeding tube and cuddled up in his mother's arms, purring softly. Damn it! Now where am I going to find anybody else to tell our story? Al burped and nuzzled close. Oh well, maybe I can rub my goods against someone from the Gazette. It's only a town over. She spat a glob of thick phlegm on the floor. But beggars can't be choosers when it comes to publicity. Ain't that right, baby? Al cooed softly and drifted off to sleep. Rude Awakenings by Rob Fields. Shawnee Gerald never had a problem getting to bed on time. In fact, she was usually in bed by 11 when she had to work the next morning. When she didn't have to work, she would stay up late, which meant sleeping in late. But today wasn't one of those days. Shawnee smiled softly, no doubt having an exciting dream, but her smile faded when she finally heard her smartphone ringing. She opened her eyes slowly, sat up, grabbed her phone and muttered, Whoever is calling me better have a good reason for it. Hello, she snapped. Shawnee, get in here, a female voice said quickly on the other end. Bev? Shawnee asked. Get in here, Bev repeated. You're an hour late for work, Shawnee gasped. An hour late? Yes, Bev confirmed. Hurry, get in here. Brent is pissed. Just a second, Bev, Shawnee muttered. Shawnee looked down at her clock. It was almost noon. She pressed the alarm check button. The display read 10 a.m., just the way it should have. This was the second day in a row her alarm clock had refused to cooperate. Tell Brent I'll be right in, Shawnee muttered. Shawnee walked into the mall's bookstore where she worked. When Bev saw her, she quickly motioned for her to come to the checkout counter. Brent wants to see you. Stat, Bev said. He's really pissed. Shawnee Gerald? A masculine voice called out. The two girls turned to see a man in his mid-20s standing near the back room entrance, his eyes seemingly burned right through Shawnee. Hi, Brent, Shawnee weakly murmured. He held up a hand to silence her. In my office. Now. Bev gave Shawnee a look that, wished her luck. After work, Shawnee pulled her car up to the closest plaza from her house. She quickly parked the car, got out, Bev in tow, and pulled on the doors of the department store, but found them locked. Fuck! Shawnee turned and leaned against one of the doors. This sucks! I should have been watching the time! Fuck! Aren't there other places nearby that sell clocks? Bev asked. Yeah, but they're closed by now, Shawnee muttered. And I don't want some cheap piece of shit. I need a good clock, and loud. You say you're looking for a loud alarm clock? A voice called out nearby. The girls turned to see a man in his late 40s standing in the doorway of a store next door. The man had graying hair and looked pleasant enough, but there was something about him that just didn't feel right. Shawnee couldn't say anything to Bev about it right then, but she wasn't about to turn down the possibility for getting a working alarm clock tonight. Yeah, Shawnee answered. I need one that'll wake me up and it's gotta be loud. Why don't you step inside for a little bit? The man suggested. I think I can help you. As the girls walked toward the store, they looked up and saw the sign above the door. Tinker's. The man motioned for them to enter as he held the door open. The store was filled with what appeared to be many used electronic items. I've never seen this place before, Bev said. Me neither, Shawnee agreed. Because people don't think to look here for things when they need them, the man said. I have an alarm clock in the back that I think you might be interested in. Sure, Shawnee answered. He turned and walked into the back room. Seconds later, he returned with a small electronic clock. Would you like to examine it? Tinker asked. Sure, Shawnee answered. Tinker handed the alarm clock to her. It appeared to be a standard GE brand electronic alarm clock. If you wish to buy this one, I can make you a really good deal, Tinker offered. What kind of deal? I'll sell it to you for $5. I'll take it. Excellent. Tinker motioned to the register to ring up the purchase. Tinker saw the girls to the door. Once they were out and returning to their car, he closed his shop. At 8 o'clock the next morning, the alarm on her new clock kicked on. The repeated blaring woke Shawnee up immediately. She quickly turned and pushed the alarm stop button. Shawnee stared at the clock for a moment. Then she took a deep breath and smiled. She got out of bed, grabbed her work clothes, and headed to the bathroom to get ready. Shawnee walked in through the employee entrance to the bookstore with a good 15 minutes to spare. Hi, Brent, Shawnee murmured. Well, look who's here, he exclaimed. Looks like you get to keep your job, he added jokingly, for at least another day. It seemed 8 o'clock came almost immediately after she fell asleep that night. Shawnee shrieked and suddenly sat bolt upright in bed. She quickly reached over and shut the alarm off. The alarm had all but scared her half to death. After she collected herself, she got out of bed and looked at the clock. You seem louder today than you were yesterday, she said to the clock. She picked it up and found the volume control knob. It was still where she'd set it. She turned the volume down slightly and put the clock back down. Thursday morning came. When Shawnee's alarm went off, it was so loud that she shot right awake and fell out of bed trying to slap the alarm stop button. When Shawnee stepped out of the house, she heard the front door of her neighbor's house open. Mr. Sizemore stepped outside and glared at her with the most hateful eyes. "You the one making all that racket this early in the goddamn morning?" he snapped accusingly. "What racket?" Shawnee answered, confused. "What racket?" He pointed sharply up to her bedroom window. "That fucking racket you've been making at 8 every morning since Tuesday." "I don't know what you're talking about, Mr. Sizemore. The only sound that's been going off at around that time is my clock. Now, if you'll excuse me, I don't want to be late for work." Mr. Sizemore pointed sharply at her. "I shouldn't have to hear all that shit every day like that, especially this early in the goddamn morning." He stormed back into his house and slammed the door shut. Shawnee rolled her eyes as she stepped off the porch. Whatever. She got into her car and headed off to work. The next day's alarm was so loud that Shawnee screamed from fright. But this time the alarm wasn't sounding off in continuous blares. It was one continuing blare. She reached over to the clock and pressed the alarm stop button. The alarm didn't shut off. "Shut up!" she screamed, pressing the button again. "Shut up!" She pressed the alarm stop button one more time. Finally, there was silence. As soon as she walked outside, she was greeted by an unfriendly, familiar voice. "I warned you about that fucking racket, young lady!" Mr. Sizemore snapped. "But I didn't do it!" Shawnee almost shouted. Just then, her other neighbor, an elderly woman, came out onto her porch and shouted at her. "Listen, you! If I have to put up with that loud racket at this time of the morning one more time, I'm going to call the police!" "But it wasn't me!" Shawnee protested. The old woman ignored her and stormed back into her house, slamming the door shut behind her. Shawnee then realized that some of the other neighbors were looking over at her house, probably for the same reason. She also realized there was only one thing that could have possibly been making all the noise: her new alarm clock. She turned and walked back into the house, walked back upstairs and into her bedroom. She went to the alarm clock and unplugged it from the wall outlet. She needed to return it to Tinker's and get a refund. As the girls were shelving the new books that came in, Shawnee told Bev about her clock and how her neighbors had complained or stared at her. Bev just looked at her. "I'm not making this up," Shawnee exclaimed. "That new clock is loud enough to wake the whole neighborhood." "Shawnee, I've got a suggestion." Bev held up her index finger. "Why don't you just turn the alarm down?" "I did, 2 days in a row." Shawnee was frustrated. "But when the alarm went off this morning, it was so loud I woke up just like that, and both my next-door neighbors gave me hell about it." Bev's face then lit up. "Let's take it back to the store and tell Tinker about it, but first, I have to hear it." "Oh, I don't know, Bev." "Come on, bring it over tonight. The girls are coming over. We can annoy them too." "Okay," Shawnee said, reluctantly. That night, the girls gathered at Bev's house. Bev lived in a large house just outside of town. Her closest neighbors were in the graveyard across the road. In addition to Shawnee, Bev had invited 2 close friends to her sleepover. The first was Mary Deakins, a slender, geeky girl who was always game for anything exciting. And then there was Pam Westley, a girl who lived on the mischievous side. "Your alarm clock really wakes up your neighbors?" Pam asked Shawnee. "Uh-huh," Shawnee answered. "Well," Bev motioned at the clock. Shawnee looked at the device, shrugged, and set the alarm to go off in a minute's time. And it did, louder than ever before. "Shawnee, your alarm clock really rules!" Pam cheered. "Shut up!" a voice shouted, seemingly coming from nowhere. "Can't a guy get any sleep around here?" Another voice, a raspy one, called out. "Turn that blasted thing off!" another voice shouted. The girls started in fright. Mary rose and went to the nearest window. "Holy shit!" Mary screamed. Shawnee saw that Mary was frantically pointing to the graveyard across the street. And then she screamed too. Corpses were coming up out of the ground. Some of them were already shambling past the graveyard entrance. "Turn that thing off! Shut up, shut up! Who dares awaken us from our eternal sleep?" I'm gonna kill whoever's making that noise. Shawnee quickly turned and yanked the clock plug from the wall. The alarm was still blaring. Shawnee shrieked and fumbled with the volume control knob. She turned it in the direction of a lower setting, but nothing was happening. Bev raced to the front door and locked it. I'll get the back door, Pam shouted, running for it. Get the side door too, Bev shouted back. Mary looked out through the front door's window and saw the living dead were in the yard now, some almost to the front porch. Bev screamed, "They're here!" "What the fuck are we gonna do?" Shawnee shouted. Bev turned to her. "Turn that fucking clock off!" I'm trying! Shawnee pressed all the buttons on the clock repeatedly, but the alarm still wouldn't stop blaring. Pam returned. The doors are all locked, she turned to Shawnee. "Turn off that clock! This isn't funny anymore!" "I'm trying," Shawnee repeated. "Try harder," Pam shouted. "Give me that," Bev snatched the clock from Shawnee. Bev held it up high before flinging it to the hard floor. The clock smashed against it with a loud bang. The alarm still didn't stop blaring, and the clock wasn't even damaged. By now, the girls were putting their hands to their ears to try and block out the horrible racket. Pam hollered out, "They're at the front window!" "There are more at the door," Shawnee added. "What the fuck are we gonna do?" Bev cried. "Out the back," Mary suggested quickly. Shawnee grabbed the clock and followed the others out the back door. The living dead were now in the backyard. The girls ran off the back porch before the dead could block them in. A zombie wearing a Civil War-style uniform almost grabbed Shawnee. "Turn that blasted thing off!" it rasped in a shout at her. "Let us sleep in eternal peace," a female zombie wearing a tattered white wedding gown added. Shawnee was really frustrated. She took the alarm clock by the cord and swung it hard and fast onto the hard stone walkway. When the clock hit, it was still not damaged, nor did the blaring stop. "Where can we go?" Mary shouted. "Those things are everywhere." Pam turned to Shawnee. "Will you shut that fucking thing off?" "I'm trying!" Shawnee screamed. The girls ran into the garage through the side door. Bev locked it behind them. She turned to Shawnee. "Grab a hammer or something and smash that fucking clock." Shawnee saw a sledgehammer on a nearby workbench and grabbed it. Throwing the clock down, she lifted the heavy hammer up over her head. With a loud scream, she swung the hammer down at the accursed clock. She hit it right on the mark. But the clock was still undamaged and still blaring loudly. "I don't believe this shit!" Shawnee cried. Everybody looked at the still undamaged clock. The dead had surrounded the garage. The female zombie wearing the tattered wedding gown shattered one of the garage windows with a single blow. Glass shards flew inside. "We're coming in," the female zombie gurgled. "You will all suffer for awaking us." Then it reached both of its decaying arms inside and cradled the lethal object that was hanging on a nearby utensil rack. "She's got an axe!" Shawnee screamed frantically. "We're coming in!" the zombie cheered, gurgling. The girls screamed as the zombie started chopping away. Shawnee continued to smash the alarm clock with the sledgehammer, but no matter how hard she swung, no matter how many times she hit it, the clock would neither stop blaring nor be destroyed for anything. The zombie bride had finally chopped its way through the garage door. Another zombie smashed its way through the side door window and stuck its hand inside to unlock the door. Mary quickly grabbed a nearby mallet, ran to the side door, and bashed the zombie's head. The zombie cried out and looked up at Mary. Then it screamed loudly at her. Mary screamed in terror with the zombie. She screamed even louder as the door broke off, with the zombie Mary hit now walking inside. Shawnee gave up trying to smash the clock, seeing it was pointless. She dropped the sledgehammer and picked up the clock. As she did, she saw a small rectangular outline on the clock's bottom. Of course, Shawnee thought. These alarm clocks have a battery backup in case the plug is pulled out of the wall or the power goes out at home. The zombie bride raised the axe, intent on striking Shawnee. Just as she had opened the battery backup compartment, one hard jerk severed the industrial-strength 9-volt battery from its connectors. The clock had finally stopped blaring. The zombies turned and started shambling back toward the graveyard. Shawnee knew what she was doing after work the next day. When work was over, the girls punched out, got into Bev's car, and headed for Tinker's. "I hope you can get your money back," Bev said. "You've got the receipt?" Shawnee groaned. I don't care about that. I just want this fucking thing gone. The girls suddenly stopped, dead in their tracks. Bullshit, Shawnee cried in shock. Bev was just as shocked. The store that was once Tinker's was only an empty suite now. Shawnee pointed sharply to the empty suite. I bought this clock here, Bev. I know I did. You don't have to convince me, Shawnee. I was here with you. But how did he move out so quickly? Shawnee shrugged wearily and threw the clock where the shop once stood, turned, and walked away. As the girls walked off, Tinker reached down and picked up the clock. He held it up in front of him and laughed, and laughed, and laughed.
The Warehouse of Blood by Shane Migliavacca.
April 13th, 1979. It's 1 a.m. on Friday the 13th, and I've been awake for 2 days. Will the 13th hold good luck for me? We'll see. My long brown hair needs a good combing. Haven't been back in the apartment in 3 days, and I think my bra is starting to stink of BO. I'm sitting here on a wood crate and my butt has fallen asleep. I've been following Teddy Stoneberry all night. Teddy's been the talk of the town lately. Only surviving son of Peter and Dorothy Stoneberry. Peter owns a huge shipping empire. Teddy's twin brother Chuck died in a fire when the boys were 10, which left Teddy to inherit everything. His younger sister Anne ran off with her female tennis instructor last year. Word was the folks disowned her after that. Lately, Teddy has been seen gallivanting about town with a model by the name of Susie S. No last name, just S. Guess that makes her interesting. Susie became a lot more interesting a week ago, when she went missing. At first, it was looked at as another Susie lost weekend coke binge. Then her purse showed up in a gutter on 43rd Street. Everything intact, not even a penny missing. So, robbery wasn't a motive. If it was a kidnapping, why hasn't anybody come forward? Pretty soon, all signs were pointing at good old Teddy. He was known to have quite a little temper. The popular theory was they got in a fight over her drug habit and hit her a little too hard. Poor Susie is most likely stuffed in a crate on one of Daddy's cargo ships, halfway to Singapore. The other theory, Susie's old flame, J.J. Brown, he of a fifth-rate punk band called Motherfuckers from Mars, killed her in a jealous rage. I don't buy that theory myself. Teddy, he's involved somehow. I can feel it in my gut. I watch as he enters a warehouse owned by the family, not far from the pier. I can hear the water crashing against the side of a nearby cargo ship. There's a chill in the air, forcing me to pull my denim jacket tighter. Its furry collar prickly against my neck. I pull my wool wide-brimmed hat down. Time to snoop, Sam, I say to myself, watching my breath twirl in the cold night air. I slip off the box, worming my way past the stack of crates I was hiding behind. My butt and legs are asleep from sitting there, causing me to limp along for a few seconds before the blood gets flowing again. This is my favorite time of any story I'm investigating. Digging up dirt, sneaking around, butting in where I'm not wanted. Might not be respectable, but sure as hell is fun, though. If I can catch him red-handed, I'll have the scoop of the year. I'll be done with these shitty little news stories I've been covering for a year and a half. Just because I'm a woman, the chief gives me the most boring stories imaginable. Flower festivals and craft fairs. Fucking really? Catch him red-handed doing God knows what. I figure he wouldn't have the body stashed here, right? Maybe he's got something of hers here. It's slim, but it's better than nothing. Teddy entered using a door marked office. Too risky trying to enter through there. Maybe I can find another way in, an open window or something. Preferably nothing that involves climbing. Me and heights don't get along too well since that case with that embezzling councilman in the high-rise balconies. Oh, I'm in luck. I find a dumpster around the side of the warehouse. Above it is a large window. There's a horrible smell coming from the dumpster. The image of Susie's decomposing body pops into my head. Shit. No two ways about it. Now I gotta look. Fishing the small flashlight from my jacket, never leave home without it, I lift the lid of the dumpster. Thank God I've got my riding gloves on. I shine the flashlight over the contents of the dumpster. There's a few black trash bags, some empty beer cans, some flattened cardboard boxes, and, something else. I can only see a little bit of it. Red. Bright red. Could it be Susie? I try to push some of the garbage out of the way, but it's too far down. I really, really do not want to climb down there. I ease the lid back down and go hunting for something to extend my reach. After a little looking, I find a broken board from a wooden pallet. I head back to the dumpster and use it to push aside some of the trash while holding the flashlight in my other hand. Laying there under everything is what remains of a fair-sized dog. The greasy cheeseburger I had for lunch almost makes a return appearance. I throw the board in and lower the lid. God, the dog looks like it was skinned. Not only skinned, but there's chunks missing, like somebody carved Fido up for lunch meat. Who the hell would do that? Teddy got a dog meat fetish? That would be far out. It'd make a hell of a headline. I decide to go back to why I'm here, checking out this warehouse and where Teddy got off to. I climb up onto the dumpster lid. The cold metal creaks under my weight. One too many cheeseburgers. I try the window, but there's a wire mesh protecting it. That's what a high crime rate gets you. Worse yet, the glass is frosted, so peeking isn't possible. Damn their security and secrecy. I stand there, frustrated, trying to come up with another plan. That's when I hear a loud scream from inside. Shit! I jump down off the dumpster, trying not to break a leg in the process. I run around the side of the warehouse to where I saw the door marked office. Before I can pull it open, the door flies open of its own accord, knocking me on my ass and pushing the air from my lungs. In the commotion, I see a vague, man-sized figure standing in the doorway, backlit with the light from within. I hear a groaning noise as it rushes past me. I try to get a good look as it runs away, but I'm too slow. I'm fairly sure it wasn't Teddy, but that's about all I'm sure of. I look off in the direction it went. I can try and follow, or go in the warehouse. I decide to go into the warehouse. Whoever knocked me down left bloody footprints. What is going on here? Just to be safe, I pull a small double-barreled Derringer pistol from my jacket. I keep it for close encounters. Better safe than sorry. The mayor might be cleaning up the city, making it safer for the good people, but it can still be pretty dirty. I pull open the door. There's a modest office inside with desks, carpet, and filing cabinets. The bloody footprints mar an otherwise decent carpet. Shame. Making my way through the office, following the bloody footprints back to their source leads me into a hallway. The blood leads down the hallway to the main warehouse area. Aisle upon aisle of metal shelves, about 10 feet high, each one crammed with boxes and crates of various sizes and shapes as far as the eye can see. The blood trail ends in a large pool in the center of one of the aisles. There's nobody, just a hat. Looks like the kind a security guard might wear. A pained moan comes from somewhere in the back. The guard, maybe? I try to follow the sound, but get lost among the aisles. After a little fruitless searching, I give up. "Hello?" I call out. "Where are you?" Then I add, "I'm here to help." I was actually here snooping. They don't need to know that. There's no answer. I try a couple more times, holding my breath and waiting for an answer, when finally, "Here," the voice says weakly. A man's voice. "I'm here." "Keep talking to me, buddy," I holler back. "I'll find you." After a few minutes, I find a very beat-up Teddy Stoneberry in the rear of the warehouse. He's slumped against a wood crate, a large gash on his forehead, another on his chest. His hair is matted with blood. "What happened?" I ask, kneeling down by him. "Who," he mutters, "who are you?" I need a good lie. "Jenny Smith. I was passing by. Heard a scream?" Not good, but it'll do. He's barely with it anyway. His wounds look pretty bad. He needs help, but the reporter in me overrides my natural instinct to help. "Who did this to you?" I ask. His only answer is a groan, his eyes closing as he slumps forward. I check him. Still alive. Trying to wake him, I shake him a little. "Come on, Teddy, stay with me." He groans again, his eyes opening and promptly closing once more. Fuck. Wanting to stop his bleeding somehow, I scan the area for a rag or something. That's when I see the room behind a stack of crates, almost hidden away. I rush over. The room is dark. I pull out my flashlight. Looks like someone was being kept here. There's a stained mattress on the floor and some blankets. There's also a bowl with hunks of bloody meat. The smell of rotting meat and urine is overpowering. I back away, trying not to vomit. That goddamn cheeseburger won't stay down. God, were they keeping Susie here? What the fuck did they do to her? I go back over to Teddy, suddenly not caring about helping him anymore. Angry, I shake him hard till he moans, his eyes fluttering open. "Who did you have here?" "Who?" he mumbles, his head drooping forward. Hey, I slap his face, leaving a red mark. "Stay awake, Teddy, come on. Who was in that room? Susie?" He laughs, coughing on his blood. "Susie who? Susie Q?" "In that room," I point. "Were you keeping her there?" Teddy coughs, spitting out some blood, right onto my cheek. Thanks. He grabs my left arm tight. Brother's here," he says before finally going out again. His grip goes slack, his hand falling to his lap. "Brother? Your brother's dead," I say, even though he can't hear me. Off in the distance somewhere in the warehouse, there's an excited whoop. Then, one by one, each row of lights goes out, leaving Teddy and I in the darkness.
Play, want to play.
A hideous voice calls out from somewhere in the pitch blackness. Tick, tick, tick. Something runs through the warehouse. I click the flashlight on, the light beam dances around as my arm trembles. In my other hand, I grip the pistol tight. It's only 2 shots, but right now, it's all I got.
Play.
I jump as a box comes crashing down off of one of the shelves a few feet behind me. I shine the flashlight upwards and catch a glimpse of a mangled bare foot as somebody runs along the top of the shelves. I hear a noise and stop, dead in my tracks. Another large crate crashes into the floor in front of me. I raise my arms as wood splinters and bottles fly at me. I drop the flashlight in the process. As it rolls away from me, I catch a brief glimpse of an open space on one of the bottom shelves to my left. I use it to dart through into the next aisle, anything to distance myself from whoever is up there. I cross the next aisle until I come to another row of shelves. I press my back against it, using my hand in the darkness to inch along it, trying to head in the direction of the hallway. Drip, drip, drip. I stop moving. Water? A leak, maybe? Drip, drip, drip. Nearby, reaching out in front of me, a drop hits my hand. Warm. I pull my hand back.
Doll.
It's right over there. A large, rough hand tries to grab me by the head, knocking my hat off. I push away from the shelves, trying to run, but they grab at my hair, yanking me back.
Don't break, Dolly.
It says. The pistol. It's only 2 shots. In the dark, I'd be firing blind, but I've got to risk it. I angle it up towards where I think it is, listening for its breathing. I squeeze the trigger. A bright flash in the darkness and an explosion of sound. Over the ringing of my ears, I hear it let out a loud scream, letting me go in the process. This is all I need as I run. There's light ahead. I'm not sure if it's from outside or just my eyes reacting to the muzzle flash of the pistol. At this point, I don't care which it is. Running towards it, I hit something in the darkness. I go down on my knees, hard, Frantically, I pull myself up, limping forward towards the light. The light is all I have. Closer. Closer. I reach the light. It's the office. Adrenaline surges through me as a way out looms ahead. I reach for the metal bar of the door. My hands feel the coolness of it. Freedom. Then reality's large, rough hands grab me by the hair, yanking me away from the door.
Bad doll.
My hands fly out, grabbing at anything to hold on to. They latch onto the corner of a desk. I kick at my attacker, digging my boots into their legs and bare feet. Howling in frustration, they throw me over one of the desks. I tumble over, colliding with a chair, and crash to the carpeted floor. I lie there. The carpet really is nice. I could take a nap here.
Dolly?
No, don't lie down and die. Fight! I see it there, just under the desk. A letter opener. I pull myself towards it, fingers outstretched. Crawl, Sam. Almost there.
Bad Dolly.
A shadow falls over me. It's here. Got it. My fingers wrapped around the plastic handle of the letter opener. I roll over, coming face to face with it. With him. He looks down at me. His face was once handsome, but it's marred by horrible scars now. Old burns healed over. Drool hangs from his lip like a pendulum. Sparse tufts of hair dot his fire-ravaged head, the right cheek of which is partially burned away, leaving a gaping hole. Jagged bone poking through. Savage, bloody teeth line his mouth. How can somebody live like that? He reaches for me, his large, coarse left hand caked in dried blood. The right arm hangs limp, a large, bloody wound just below the shoulder. Is that where I shot him?
Broken Dolly.
He says, the words whistling through his exposed cheek, his hand gently stroking my face.
I fix.
He grabs me by the throat, his grip tightening. Lord, he's going to pop my head off. I lash out with the letter opener, stabbing him in the neck with the blade, the handle snapping off in the process. He stumbles back, the blade stuck in his neck. He pulls it out, blood jetting in big red spurts. I pick myself up off the floor, barely able to stand, gasping for air. He looks at me, panicked as his life drains away. Sadness in his eyes.
Pretty.
He says, reaching out with his hand before tumbling backwards into a desk. He comes to a rest on the carpet, blood pooling around him. Damn, now the carpet's going to really be ruined. I stumble outside, the cold air waking me up, its bitterness rushing through my lungs. I hear sirens in the distance. Are they coming here? I could go to my motorcycle, it's parked not far from here, stashed behind a shipping container. Disappear or stay? After a few moments of debating, I decide to stay. I really don't feel like walking. I sit down on the cold concrete and wait. 3 hours later, I sit at a desk in the 12th Precinct Police Station, sipping a very bad cup of coffee. It couldn't be more welcome at this moment. What a Fool Believes by the Doobie Brothers is playing on one of the detectives' radios. The hardwood chair under my ass isn't doing me any favors. I thought that crate was bad. I'm gonna feel like shit tomorrow. The police have grilled me over and over. There was no use lying to them about why I was there. I already have a bad reputation with the boys in blue. From what I've gathered, Teddy is still alive. The thing that knocked me down outside the warehouse and left behind a trail of blood? Turns out that was a security guard at the warehouse. Got half his face bit off. Seems Teddy was paying him under the table, keeping his burnt brother there under lock and key. At least, that's who I think it was. Did that crazy Meatloaf kill Susie? I think so, even though I have no proof and no way of proving it. Maybe Loaf was the dirty family secret, a secret that got free. But it's not a story I'll ever get to tell. Teddy's family lawyer showed up about an hour ago. After some words with the detectives, I was given a choice. Keep quiet or face numerous charges, including trespassing, gun possession, and murder. What a fucking laugh that is. Sure, I shouldn't have been there, but loaf? That was self-defense. But I don't have the money to fight Teddy's team of lawyers, and I sure as hell don't like the thought of prison bars. Jimmy Quinn, my very put-upon sidekick and photog, comes marching up to the stairs outside the detective's bullpen, looking like I just woke him up from either a great dream or a hangover. He raises his arm up. This is becoming all too common, Sam. I shrug. What can I say? He runs a hand through his messy hair. Weren't you supposed to be covering a spring flower show? Show got canceled. Take a last sip of the coffee before standing. Get my motorcycle? He tosses me the keys. Right where you said it would be. Would you drive? I ask, stretching and yawning. I'll ride in the sidecar. We walk towards the stairs. You know there's an all-night Chinese place down the block from my place? Good old Quinn. Always trying. Maybe one of these days I'll give in. Maybe. All night, huh? Well, I could go for some General Tso's chicken. And then? He asks, looking a little awkward, hope in his eyes. Then I'm going home to sleep. Alone. I could see how disappointed he was. Think I'll get chewed out by the chief? I ask, already knowing the answer. For sure. Outside, the cold air hits my face. I couldn't get the image of poor Loaf out of my head, and the thought that poor Susie would never have justice. As tired as I am, I don't think sleep will come easy tonight.